Three. Hello, all you hardcores out there. How are you doing? Today we're joined by Julian. You don't need no introductions. Good pal of mine. How you doing, Julian?
I'm all right, Russell. I won't go into too much detail. I'll tell you offline, mate. I've not had the best of days, mate.
No crap. Why? What's going on, mate? Tell your Uncle Porky.
I'm not going to tell your massive audience, mate. I'll tell you later. But
Oh,
I've had better days, buddy.
right. I hope you've had a better day than Mark's. He's well, you won't have had a good as day, Max. He's signed a fight deal with Big Ron.
Yeah, so I'm not on social media, and Max and I chat most days, as you know. And then I saw the photo that he was over in Jersey, which I knew he was over in Jersey. Dennis said hello to me the other day. He signed his life away, hasn't he, to Fight Zone?
That's it now. Dennis will be lining him up for Joe Joyce. Moses Patome.
Listen, you know what? And I said this to Max. You and I are pretty honest and open where Max is concerned because he's a great lad. But ultimately, you can sign whatever you like, but the work's done in the gym, isn't it? And the work's done ultimately then when you get into the ring. So those five fight deals mean nothing if you don't deliver on that first fight and that second fight. So
yeah, look at Dave Allen. He had a big deal with Dennis, and he's not been fighting and not training and all that. I mean, I know he is now, and he's looking in good shape from what I've heard. But it don't mean no, does it? That just means you're not.
No. Listen, there's a lot of hungry fighters out there. There's a lot of talented fighters out there, and Max will decide, what he wants to do. Does he want to give it a run and give it everything? Does he want a few quid? He's a big, strong lad, but he's green.
Got a good job, hasn't he, Marks?
Nice, solid jabbers, Max. I've not done anything with him, as you know, since last June. But I'll do a few sessions with him always. Give him a little bit of an hand. But he knows what I've said to him. You got to be in a boxing gym. You got to be around boxers, and it's difficult. He lives he lives on the East Coast, but ultimately there are gyms around there. And I think he's been spending a bit of time at Bridlington Boxing Gym. But that's what he needs. He needs to put himself about now, like fighters do. Get on the road, do some sparring, get cultures of other gyms, and get some hard rounds in before I think it is April or May's boxing.
Yeah, yeah, I think it will probably. Yeah, he'll need a couple of months to get fixed. He's not fit.
Yeah, he needs some serious time, and then I guess he's playing catch up all the time. But he knows that. He knows where he's at in terms of all these other kids. But it's like anything, isn't it? It's managing and setting your expectations of actually what you want to do with your career. I know big, strong, tough guys who just want to earn a few quid. I know other people who have got real ambitions of winning belts and stuff, and it's just setting your expectations and being realistic.
Yeah, it is. Tommy Fury, Jake Paul. What's your take on it now? I mean, it's pay-per-view, isn't it? And we've just had Yarden beat a beat. That wasn't pay-per-view. So I'm confused, Julian. Can you explain it to me?
Yeah, I mean, I did a bit of a breakdown of the Tommy Fury Jake Paul fight. People don't listen to what you're actually saying. These are two comparative novices. I just happen to think that one's worse than the other, or one's not as good as the other. But I was thinking about this. You and I chat about the misfit shows, YouTubers, and how boxing's becoming really blurred to everybody. This happened with white collar boxing becoming kind of prominent. People started on social media, on Facebook, holding these cardboard belts saying, I've just won a belt. And what's the belt you've won? Well, it's this and it's that and it's the other. I'm a British champion. Well, you're a British champion. What organisation is that? Oh, it's so-and-so with my first fight. People win. I knew somebody, a young lady who won a British title in her first ever white collar fight. So that becomes really confusing to people who don't know much about boxing. So what you've got now is you've got the misfit shows and YouTubers boxing. And the painful truth, whether we like it or not, to an uneducated viewer, these misfit shows are so much more entertaining than real boxing, high level, high quality boxing. and I'm not suggesting Jake Paul and Tommy Fury are misfits, by the way, and the YouTubers. There might be a little bit more than that now, but they're not elite amateurs, are they? They're not real genuine prospects who you're saying, let's watch this kid like an Adam Azim. You think this kid might go all the way. They're not in that bracket.
I think it's a bit like Test match cricket. It's not as exciting as 2020.
I think it is. Listen, boxing's needed to change, hasn't it? Boxing hasn't changed. It's needed to change. It needs to adapt and become more entertaining. You know, you've got two things. You've got the big shows that we all watch or that we see all the time, and the arena's filling up, and people aren't really interested in the first 5 or 6 fights on those shows. And you just get the A-listers and the B-listers coming to watch those big shows and watching the chief support and the main event, and then they tag themselves on social media and then they go home. Then you got the next level, which are these shows like Dennis's shows, like Steffi Bull, Mark Bates, and all these other shows where they're just not generating much interest, and it's a kind of it becomes really formulaic, doesn't it? Whereas it's 8 home fighters against 8 kids with losing records, and the posting shutout wins on the left-hand side of the bill. And boxing has to change. You know, Dana White talks about this, and boxing has to change. But the problem, what we've got is we've got this evolution, and we've got more interest in these YouTube and misfit shows than we have in real boxing. And I keep hearing the argument, Russell, you've heard this from me so many times. People say this is attracting eyes to boxing. It really isn't. It's attracting more people and more YouTubers and more online community to follow the people they love. I've said before, KSI could be doing basketball, it could be knitting at home, it could be just ordering pizza. People will pay to watch KSI. These are influencers, and people love them for whatever they do, whatever they bring. Whether they're actually there to see them box is another matter. But if you think of that crowd, if you get the misfits crowd now, Russell, yeah, and you get 100 of those guys out of that crowd, and you say, I'm going to give you free tickets, and this is not a criticism, I'm going to give you free tickets to Steffi Bull, his next show, or Mick Wales' next show, right?
Yeah.
And then they go and they see the home fighter fighting the usual journeyman, 60-54, 40-36, 100-90. Do you think those guys are going to return to those shows?
No.
No, they want entertainment. This generation of people who are just consumers, who just want instant gratification.
They're looking at all these mismatches in boxing, and it's turned them off, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's turned them off, and you know what? It's turning as many of us off one at a time. Well, not one at a time. We're leaving in our droves now, aren't we? And I never thought I'd say this, and I won't watch these misfit shows. I've seen highlights pop up and stuff, but I can understand why it's attracting people. Because if you look at the absolute shit show of professional boxing right now, what you've got is you've got so many things that need to happen right now. We know that the Usyk Fury fight needs to happen. Oh, we'll touch on it later, perhaps. We want
Peter B. Bivol, Spence Crawford.
Yeah, we need them to happen, and they're not happening. And now we've got the one that we were all mouth-watering waiting for, which is Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. This now looks like it's in jeopardy because of clauses with broadcasters and promotion, rematch clauses, broadcasters, promoters. So boxing people, from the fighters to the managers to the agents to the representatives to the PR gurus to the promoters to the sponsors to the broadcasters, we're wrecking the sport, aren't we? Everybody has got to have some blame what's going on. And if you're trying to attract new viewers to boxing, how do you explain to somebody that the two best fighters will never fight each other? We've now got 4, 5, 6, 7 world champions. Look at the women's sport. We've got 7 undisputed champions in the women now. There might be less fighters. There might be easy to make these unifications, but they're embarrassing us, mate. They're absolutely embarrassing the men's side. And how has boxing got it so wrong? How have we got to a situation where Garcia and Tank Davis, the fight looks in jeopardy because they're whinging over a rematch clause, not thinking about the first fight. They're whinging about broadcasting rights. Do you remember Hagler and Earns being in jeopardy because they were whinging about rematch clauses and broadcasting rights and all this kind of stuff? It's absolute garbage. So
Wow.
When boxing ultimately becomes even more of a minority sport than it is, you can't blame people for switching away, and everybody's going to have had an element of blame in this one.
Yeah, I caught that. But what about the double dippers? You know, like people are having a moan, but Callum Sauerland, look at him with Misfits and look at Spencer Oliver's rolling it all. He was one of the first ones to put the first two shows on, wasn't he? They've all had their hand in it and and filled the pockets, and now they're all squirming.
Listen, it's first to dress it up as charity, don't they? These celebrity fights. I remember comic relief is a very noble thing.
Don King's first show was a charity one, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's what they do. They do charity ones. But if you take your mind right back to was it Grant Bovey and Ricky Gervais who had that comic relief?
Oh, God, yeah.
And then the McGuigans got involved, and the licenses weren't at risk there, were they? McGuigans got involved, anything for a camera and everything for a quid, and I like the McGuigans. And people say, hey, it's for comic relief, McGowan, what's wrong with you? You got two guys who are not trained fighters cracking each other, who Ricky Gervais looked like he was going to have a heart attack, actually, when he was training for that fight. And this is what happens, this is where it starts, isn't it? Because you've heard me say this so many times, right? Boxing is a highly skilled, highly dangerous sport. But the message that we're giving is anyone can do it. There's no skill level to boxing. Anybody can do it. It's like Formula One racing. Are we just going to let celebrities and anybody drive 200-mile-an-hour cars around a track? Because, hey, listen, everybody's got a right to do that. And this is the problem that we've got. There used to be a skill assessment. You started boxing for a club, England Boxing, or an ABA club, as it was called in my day in the 80s, and you had a skill assessment. And that gym put you through a medical only when they thought you were competent enough to have your first bout. And if you weren't good enough, you didn't get a fight. I remember Mark Tate and Keith Tate breaking lads' hearts because they just says, you're just not cut out for boxing, you're not good enough. And clubs who used to put kids in who weren't ready, who were too green, who got badly knocked out, they were held to account by the ABA. They were like, listen, you're going to get your license taken off you. You're going to get your affiliation taken off you because you're putting kids in a ring in a dangerous physical contact sport who aren't good enough to box. But what we've got now is we've got these misfit shows, and I've heard Callie Salwan and this other guy who's an organizer for these shows saying, we have strict medicals. We have among the best medicals you can have. That medical, Russell, is irrelevant. If someone's physically fit, does that still mean that they should be allowed to take part in a fight where they're getting blows to the head? Because believe it or not, people get trained, boxing, you get trained to defend shots. You get trained to absorb shots. You get trained to...
You only need some big bricklayer who's got a bit of a dig on him to catch you in right spot, don't you?
I saw highlights of little clips of one of the Misfit shows. It's like a voyeurism, a morbid curiosity. And I was seeing guys who shouldn't be in a ring getting caught with massive shots with their heads in the air, getting their necks snapped. And I just thought, someone, to quote you, someone's going to end up on a slab. And they're all going to walk away and they're going to say, well, you know, it was a fit guy. He trained really, really hard. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
This is a contact sport. You can't just let people compete in contact sports just because it's freedom of choice and it's my right. We have a duty and an obligation as a society to have a due care and protect people from themselves. Isn't that what you know, society is all about? Sometimes you protect people from themselves, and they're just making money out of human cockfighting. It literally is. It's voyeuristic, and it's guys who can't fight. You might get the odd one, like a KSI and a, you know, Jake Paul, who can fight a little bit. Tough, fit, strong guys should probably have a rumble. But some of these, I saw one of the fights come up, Russell. It was
how's Anderson Silva losing to him?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you got
What's all that about?
47-year-old ex-MMA fighter. I mean, this is it, isn't it? I mean, it gets worse. Boxing gets worse. Apparently, Roy Jones is taking part in a professional fight.
Yeah, Roy Jones is coming back at 54-year-old in Milwaukee.
We all saw, didn't we? We all saw Enzo Maccarinelli actually nearly kill that guy.
Yeah.
That was 1 second. George Barkson is absolutely no one at the door. We all saw, didn't we, Roy Jones almost. That was a sickening, horrible knockout when Macronelli knocked him out. I mean, how long ago was that? That was so long ago. And I saw a clip of Roy Jones the other week. It was on the pads with Chris Eubank Jr. And you get to see certain things. Your eye tells you certain things. And you could see the delay as Roy Jones Jr. was holding the pads. There was a split-second delay in time in the pads with Eubank Jr.'s shots. And then there was a clip of him doing some shadowboxing. Jones Jr. was doing a little bit of shadowboxing, skipping around. And his balance and his coordination was all over the place. He's not a guy who's 54-year-old and shot. Because of the wars and the career that Roy Jones Jr. has had and the way he's deteriorated, he looks about 65 now when he's actually training and when he's holding the pads. And somebody is going to license that guy and allow him to take blows to the head. So you see what I said earlier on when it sounds like being negative about boxing, but boxing is doing this to itself, isn't it? It's why are people not stopping Roy Jones from fighting? Why are people not stopping some of these people on these misfits shows from fighting? Got no issue with YouTubers fighting. If they can have a rumble, if they're in shape, if they're used to having a bit of a fight and they've got some basic skills, fill your boots. But I saw one of these shows recently, and it was the girl who Mark Tibbs is training. And I can't remember who she was fighting. I just thought, I've got to watch this. And it was awful. It was probably the lowest level of any kind of boxing that I've ever seen. And I just thought, these people are getting hit. You know, these misfit shows as well, Russell, they wrap their hands like pros, don't they? Anybody who's ever seen how fighters wrap their hands, if you've ever been in a dressing room and you feel those hands, they're like clubs. And those gloves, whether it's 10 ounce or 12 ounce, it doesn't matter. Those gloves are hard, the brand new gloves. And those wrapped hands and those gloves, people who've no business being in a ring, getting hit on the chin, someone's going to get hurt. Someone is going to get badly hurt.
Yeah, it's dangerous, isn't it? I mean, Roy Jones. I mean, I've seen an interview earlier he was doing about Eubank. He sounds like a retard now.
He's absolutely incoherent and shot to bits, isn't he? You can tell that his short-term memory and his speech and everything's just impacted by those bad knockouts that he's had recently. I mean, who knows what kind of sparring wars he's had over the last 10, 15 years and what's been happening in sparring, because he went from amazing to being shot overnight, didn't he? And boxing continually allows him to fight. And as I've said, I can see he can't even hold a pair of pads properly. His timing is off.
He's not only one who can't hold pads.
There's a few of them, mate. Some people shouldn't.
Cowboys.
Yeah, near them, mate.
Joyce and Zhang.
It's a good old ding dang, isn't it? It's one thing us talking about the dark side of boxing. It's a fun fight. Everybody kind of fell in love a little bit with Zhilei Zhang with his fight with Hrgovic. He was unlucky not to get that one. People are really warming to Big Joe Joyce out there. He's just such a fun heavyweight. He's not the best technically, is he? Sometimes when I watch him step around the ring, it's a little bit like watching old people eat. It's not great. It's not
like
great.
a big stiff mummy, isn't he? When he's walking around.
Dexterity is literally it's all over the place. Where he can punch, he's strong, he can soak up a shot. He's an Olympic medalist, so he's definitely got some pedigree, and he's a force to be reckoned with. I don't know what the interesting. It reminds me of one of these fights. It's a little bit like you can't miss Joe Joyce. Zhang's going to have his moments, but ultimately you've got a bigger, stronger, a little bit younger guy who's just going to walk him down and swipe and take swings at him until he just falls down. So for me, it's going to be interesting early on, but it's a fun fight, isn't it? It's not a bad fight that Frank's delivered there. I don't think it's as an interim fight while Joe Joyce waits another 30 years for the heavyweight division to clean itself up. It's an interesting fight and it keeps him busy. And I'll watch that fight. No problem with that at all.
Frank's back on his perch then.
Well, he's bring the big
He's
name.
dominating heavyweight division, and that's the blue ribbon division, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know we shouldn't get too excited about fighters too early on, but I saw enough of that Moses Atumai in the 3 amateur fights I watched of his. Yes, it's early days, but you just know when someone can fight and someone does things quite naturally and quite instinctively, that there are certain things that Moses does that there are heavyweights out there ranked in the top 20. They can't do that. You know, there are certain things he does with his movement, how he drops his height, turns his shoulder. That kid's a really, really good kid. Can he take a shot? We don't know. Is he going to transfer up to world level? We don't know. But I'll tell you something, that's a very astute, brilliant signing for Frank Warren. And that kid's very, very good. I can just see it. A bit like Mike Tyson. We all saw Tyson, didn't we? When he was, 15, 16 years old in a vest. Then he fought Henry Tillman in the Olympic box offs. And we all heard about Tyson. He was 18, 19 year old. He was knocking people out. Sometimes if you're good enough, you're old enough. And I think Moses is definitely one to watch. And then you look at this, Frank's got Zhang against
Dubois.
good fight, and he's got some Dubois. He's got some good fighters out there, and
Tyson Fury.
yeah, he's got Tyson, who is obviously, well, we'll see what's going to happen there.
Eddie must be having his head in his hands now, thinking, God, have I let it get to this by clinging on to Joshua? All his eggs were in one basket, weren't they?
Strategically, it was such a bad thing to do, wasn't it? But Eddie seems to rate. I mean, Joshua can fight. It'd be silly to say he couldn't fight. But there are 3, 4 fighters out there who you would really think would beat him or have a great chance against him. And the thing is with Joshua, Eddie seems to rate fighters according to the social media, according to the PR machine and the popularity.
Yeah.
Whereas what Frank's done, as I've just said with Moses, Frank's got that eye and he's just thought, wow, we might have a sensation here. And that's more of an astute signing than just automatically going for someone who's got a big social media following. Eddie, if Eddie's planning his UK DAZN enterprise on Joshua and the other fellow, the other welterweight, who's looks like he might get licensed at some point or be allowed to fight. It's a threadbare thing. I mean, globally, Eddie Hearn's got some good fighters, and not suggesting he's not having a big impact globally. But in the UK, there's a few decent fights they've unveiled, but he's not blowing us away like we thought he was going to blow us away when it was game change, did he?
Yeah, it's these prices though. What Eddie's done that with the zone and all this. They're saying Joshua's non-pay-per-view now, but it's a fix, isn't it? Because if you pay the 20 quid for a one visit only for the month admission
Pay-per-view.
That's like pay-per-view, but you can't cancel for 30 days, so you go into the second month, so it's technically 40 quid, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There were people who'll be arguing and say if you pay up front, it's the same price it is now, £9 a month. But what you're actually paying, and I used to subscribe to DAZN.
Locking them in, aren't they, as well?
Yeah, and that's what I used to do, Russell. I used to subscribe to DAZN prior to the Ben fiasco, and since I've stopped, I refused to. But what I would do is I would go on and off, and if there was no fights for 3 months, I'd cancel it. And then if there were a couple of fights I fancied, I'd resubscribe. Whereas when you lock somebody in now, you're basically saying, right, 90 quid or 100 quid for the year, but you've got 4 really good months, and then you've got 8 months, which are pretty mediocre. And then we've obviously boxing seasonal as well. So you're locking people in for only 4 or 5 shows are decent. So you're effectively paying 20 quid for each show, aren't you? And all the rest of the stuff you're not going to bother watching. And exactly what you just said with Anthony Joshua, it's effectively pay-per-view. He knows there's going to be a lot of interest around Joshua. And there'll be people out there saying, well, I'll subscribe for the month.
It's only 2 months, isn't it, though? Because if you want to cancel,
so you're locked in. So it's 30 days and it's the fight. So you're locked in, and it's not clever what they've done, but there are a lot of people will be prepared to pay for it.
But if you go for Super Saver, you're locked in for a year.
Yeah, but we want to know what the UK DAZN viewing figures are, don't we? We don't want to know globally what the viewing figures
If they were good, they'd be squealing about it, wouldn't they?
You never hear the end of it. What are the DAZN viewing figures, subscribers for the UK? Because all I ever see, if I see DAZN announce something, I just read the comments, and the amount of people saying, right, unsubscribed, unsubscribed, cancelled, cancelled, cancelled. It's every single person who's commenting saying, right, I'm out, I'm out, I'm out. And they get a few people who say, oh, I don't think it's bad value. These are the people who've got too much money and don't seem to understand that there's a major cost of living crisis right now. Oh, 20 quid's nothing, 100 quid's nothing. Well, it is to something. It's a lot of money. And people I've seen people online as well, Russell, comparing it to Sky Sports, saying, well, Sky Sports is 20 quid, 25 quid a month. Sky Sports is a massive platform what covers all sports, what are not just global, but also UK sports. DAZN, what is it? A bit of college football, a little bit of this, and a little bit of boxing. When I was subscribing, I just, like as I've said, I very rarely found 3 months back to back that I thought were good value for money. I thought navigating the app was awful. I just thought it was pretty crappy, if I'm being honest. But you get the odd good fight. The Lee Wood-Lara fight, it's a good fight, but am I going to pay 20 quid to watch that and just subscribe for 1 month? Not a chance.
Yeah, it's not good, is it? It's not good. Callum Smith's going to fight some Dosser at light heavyweight. Stipan or some, or whatever they call some. I don't know what it is. Trucker or something, isn't he?
Don't know. I mean, that I saw that as being a headline show. I mean, Sky are getting some dodgy headliners at the moment, but I just think it's one of those fights. I like Callum Smith, but you just think I'm not going to watch it. I'm probably not going to watch the highlights, and I'm not going to go on BoxRec and find out about this guy because it's just life's too short, isn't it? And it just disengages you really quickly, doesn't it? And as we said right at the beginning, they're not giving us the fights that we need right now. And there's a few things that need to happen in boxing to keep people's interest, and it's not happening.
Yeah, it's frightening, isn't it, really, at the moment? Because if we don't get Fury Usyk next, where does that leave heavyweight division? I mean, all this undisputed chat we've been hearing for donkeys now, all roads to undisputed and all that. They don't really, none of them really want it, do they? None of promoters, sanctioning bodies, TV, and fighters. Do fighters really want? I think Usyk wants it, but
I think Usyk wants it, but you know something, you'll never really get down to the crux of it, will you? Because ultimately, as we've said about all the great fights, if the fighters really want it, the promoters and the broadcasters will make it happen. They will find a way, because the one thing that everybody forgets in this is without boxers, there's no boxing. Boxers employ everybody. When you're a boxer, you pay your trainer 10%, you pay your manager 25%. Your ticket sales go towards the production, they go towards the site rental, all that kind of thing. Without boxers, there's nothing, and people seem to forget that. And boxers just become almost like this dumb caricature where it's like, yes, Mr. Earn, yes, Mr. Warren, and they're just seemingly doing what the trainers and managers and representatives tell them to do. I think they need to make a stand now, because if I was ever gifted enough to be a world champion boxer, I just know with the ethos that we always had in our training camps. So you want to be the best in Britain, you want the Lonsdale belt outright. If I was Errol Spence or Terence Crawford, would it be satisfying to go through your career? Yeah, I might make 50 million. But you go through your career and you never really know if you were number one. Isn't that what sport's supposed to be about? Isn't it supposed to be competitive? I'm not being naive. I know it's a business. It's an overused cliche. When people say boxing's a business, Jules, boxing's a business, but it's also a sport. It's also supposed to be entertaining. It's also supposed to be competitive. And you got a situation now, haven't you, where you've got Spence and Crawford, and it's not happen for 5 or 6 years. It's looking like Spence is going to move up to 11 stone. So we've missed out on another good fight. So as I keep saying, Russell, we get good fights, but we're not getting the fights that we want, are we? That's the problem. We want Bivol now, don't we, against Beterbiev? We want that fight.
That's got to happen to save the sport.
I don't want to see Canelo against Bivol again. Canelo won't beat Bivol now in a month of Sundays. It's too far gone. It was too easily beaten, and Bivol just controlled Canelo so easily. You can't make a case for a change in the result. I didn't want to see Joshua against Usyk, but they had a rematch clause. That's what they keep doing, don't they? And there are fights that I don't want to see, but there are fights that I do want to see. You know, I want to see Tank Davis against Garcia. I want to see that fight. I want to see Haney in the mix. I want to see Haney against Shakur Stevenson. I want to see those fights because over the years, you know, child of the 70s and 80s, we've been spoilt with those fights. And is it so naive and so wrong to say, actually, I want to see Fury and Usyk and I want to know who's number one? It's not going to be the thriller of Manila, but it's an interesting fight and it gives us an undisputed champion. And they just can't seem to deliver it, can they? They're just messing about still. And if it is Tyson Fury, if it really does fall at Tyson Fury's feet, and I don't know if that's the case before I get attacked, how much does he really want, Russell? How much money? We saw Bob Arum recently saying, you see, what you've got to understand here, this fight will probably take place in Saudi somewhere, because fighters only have one career and they have to earn as much as they can during that short window of a career. And I nearly spat my tea out. It's like, are you seriously suggesting that Tyson Fury needs to get as much money as he can because he's only got one career? Tyson Fury must be worth £200 million. He couldn't give his money away. He's got that much money. And is it really that important to you to get another 20 or 30 million? Squeeze as much as you can out of this when you're actually filthy rich? And you keep talking to us about legacy. You know, I'm a historian. I'm all about the heavyweight division. I want to be the greatest of all time. You know, I'm better than Ali, all this kind of stuff. Is it that important to you? Money. Are you not just going to just put that to one side and still earn an absolute fortune, but give the people the fights that they want? Isn't that what boxing's about?
Well, it appears that it is about money, isn't it now?
All about money, mate. It's all about money, which is, people seem to think I've become a Tommy Fury fan. I've not become a Tommy Fury fan. Tommy Fury is doing this fight because it's all about money. Tyson's even come out and said about Tommy Fury, after this fight, he should have a rematch. He should fight KSI. He should fight all the other YouTubers. So he's basically saying, Tommy, it's fair enough, has got to make as much money as he can in his career, as much money as he can. But that's fine. But don't talk about wanting to become a British champion or a world champion. Just say, you know what? I want to make as much money as I can. Tyson, don't talk about wanting to become undisputed. Just say, I want to make as much money as I can. And just come out and say it.
Yeah, when you put it like that, that's in layman terms, but they don't want to put it like that because they don't want to be seen as money grabbers.
Yeah. But that's what they are, isn't it? And everybody involved, though, everybody's milking them out there. Everybody's earning from these fights. You know, these coaches who's involved with all these, these reputable coaches involved in training YouTubers because they're doing it for money. They're doing it for money. And, I've had criticism doing a little bit of work with Max. Well, what I will say to anybody is, first of all, you don't know me. And second of all, ask Max how much I've made out of work, doing little bits of work with him. Ask him, because you know how much I've made, don't you, Russell? Nothing. So that's just before anybody said, McGowan, you'd do it. No, I wouldn't.
You never even took off Gary Sykes, did you?
Whenever I took money off him, it was to pay other coaches, to pay his conditioner, to pay money that he owed, money that he'd borrowed. But in terms of did I make money off Gary Sykes, never made a penny, mate. Never made a penny. Never. Money's never been my god, which is probably why I wrestle with these guys who they'll do anything for money, won't they? It's like, you look into this as much as you want, but who's the guy who looks after Big Joe Joyce? I forget his name. Sam
Jones.
Sam Jones, right? I'm not attacking Sam Jones, yeah. But what's Sam Jones done in terms of managing Joe
I don't know if he
Joyce?
does now. I'm not so sure.
Does he
But
not? But
I don't know.
even at
What are you, a car salesman or something?
yeah, but even at that time, as he pushed for Joyce to fight mandatories, engineered him in such a place that it pushed the organisational bodies, or are these guys just happy to have other big
No,
fights?
because in my opinion, and a lot of people's, he should have forced the issue when they had the chance with the WBO. But he was in
100%.
bed. He was in bed with Eddie Hills and Bricktop, and they'd have been looking after him in other ways, wouldn't we? His other fighters, so he didn't want to rock the boat. And I think Joe Joyce really missed the boat, didn't he? Really.
And that's my point, Russell. These people
But
are
if
not.
Sam Jones wanted to, he's a new face, and he can understand he's a bit gullible, isn't he?
Yeah. Listen, Sam Jones don't want to upset either party, but ultimately he didn't do his best by his boxer. When Sykes, I keep talking about Sykes, I don't care. I go on something that's relevant, something I've done. Robert Smith will tell you when Sykes was fighting on the road and we were waiting for his shot at the title, he used to ring the board all the time. I was a pain in the ass. And when Gary Sykes had an opportunity to regain his British title in Dewsbury, I've told you the deal there. It was non-TV. TV didn't even want to deal with it. And we got an opportunity. We wait for a Sky bill, a Sky date, and we maybe just wait and jump straight to Liam Walsh because Liam Walsh was mandated and he was doing something else. We could have got 4 or 5 times the money and jumped on that, but we weren't prepared to wait. I wanted Sykes to get his shot before it was too late. He fought Johnny Case in Dewsbury on a non-TV show, and he was given £5,000 value worth of tickets. And Steve did his best by him. Steve always did his best by Sykes. What's my point? My point was we put the title and we put his career before the cash. We could have taken money to wait. We could have waited for this and waited for that and got the Sky dates. There was nothing available. It says the kid wants his belt. The kid wants to fight for his title. It's important that we put him in this position. And he took £5,000 worth of ticket money, and he didn't make all that. He didn't sell all those, didn't Sykes? And that's
the way
the point.
Gary.
Yeah, give him away. Give him away cheap. Some of them didn't sell. Some got handed back, and it was about career progression. I used to ring the board all the time. Was Sam Jones ringing the WBO daily? Was he forcing that position?
No, he won't because he was too scared. Too scared. No, it's not his fault.
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not singling Sam Jones out, Russell. Don't know the guy. But what I'm saying is, was he doing what was the best for his fighter? Which the best for your fighters to fight for world titles before you get too old. That's the best for a 34, 35-year-old guy who doesn't have
part 2, Jules.
Yeah, will do.
Right.